Alright, next we're going to go over how to use Matlab as a calculator. Matlab performs a lot of mathematical operations. You can, basically anything you can think of, Matlab can do, even higher level math. So we're just going to go through a very, very broad overview. If you want to multiply two values, and I'm just going to go into the command window because I'm not worrying about saving these values. If I want to multiply 10 times 3, 10 times 3, and then I hit enter, I get my answer of 30. If I want to divide 12 by 4, I hit 12 over 4. It's going to give me 3. If you want to raise something to an exponent, 2 to the third, you use the little caret, and it's going to give me a value of 8. If you want to add 3 plus 9, give you 12. If you want to do a complicated math problem, you have to remember your order of operations. So parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division. So if I say 3 times 2 plus 1 over 5 to the second, I'm not sure what this value is going to be, but that's going to give me a different answer than if I type in 3 times 2 plus 1 over 5 squared. Those give me two completely different answers. So you have to be really careful about your order of operations. It's linear, it's linearly written out, so it's not going to be as easy to see. Matlab also does math on matrices. So we talked about this a little bit. We talked about this actually a lot in class. But let's say that I create a vector. Say a vector is equal to, if you remember from last time, we can go from 0 to 10, from 0 to 10 in increments of 1. And that's my vector. And let's say that I have a constant a. And let's set a equal to 2. Alright. So if I output my vector, I have my vector of 1 to 10, 0 to 10. If I take vector minus 3, what that does is it goes through and it subtracts that value from each and every item inside that vector. If I take vector and I want to multiply vector by 3, it will multiply each value inside that vector by 3. Same deal with dividing. Vector divided by 3. It ran out of space to show it all in one row, but it's all there. You can see it took each number and divided it by 3. Matlab also does a lot of matrix multiplication. If you remember, in order to multiply two matrices, if you have a matrix with dimensions of R1, C1, and you're multiplying it by a matrix with dimensions R2, C2, that just stands for the number of rows and the number of columns in each. In order for that to work, C1 has to equal R2. So I'll show you a couple examples. So let's make a couple matrices. Let's say that A is equal to 2, 3, and then 5, 6. So that matrix is a 2 by 2 matrix. And then let's create B. And B, let's say that's equal to 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, and 9, 5, 0. If I try to multiply A times B, I'm going to get an error. Like we said, A is a 2 by 2, and B is a 3 by 3. So this 2 is not equal to 3. We can't multiply those together. What we can do is we can say, okay, now if A is a 2 by 3, and I'm just adding an extra column on there, we now can multiply A times B. And we get an answer. This does not mean necessarily that we can multiply B times A. B times A does not equal A times B. So if I try multiplying B times A, I'm going to get that same error because now our B is the first term and our A is the second term. There's a lot more complicated stuff with matrix multiplication, but that's pretty much all that I'm going to introduce in this video. There are a lot of resources out there that you can look up for matrix multiplication. Another thing with Matlab, it has functions built in. For example, if I say x equals 2 pi, I can take the sine of x and it'll give me an answer. Another thing that you can do is sine also works in decimal. So if I say x is equal to 60, if I say sine d of x, it will give me the sine of x if it were in degrees. But if I do just sine of x, it doesn't know that my value is supposed to be in degrees, so it's going to give me a different answer. exp is the same as e to the something. So that will put out e raised to the power of x. Squaring terms we already went over. Another thing that you can do is you can use those functions on matrices and vectors. For example, we have A is a matrix. I can take the sine of A, and it will take the sine of every value inside that matrix. Same thing. It will take each value inside the matrix and raise it to take E and raise it to that power if I use exp of the matrix. So there's a lot of interesting things you can do with math inside of Matlab, doing a lot of calculations at once. I think that pretty much covers this topic.